6 years after 3 college friends disappeared without a trace on the Appalachian Trail, a search drone's camera captures something impossible. 3 figures moving on a remote cliff ledge that rescue teams swore they'd searched a dozen times before. The morning of October 15th, 2010, starts like any other hiking day for Sarah Chen, Marcus Rivera, and Jake Thompson. Steam rises from their coffee cups as they huddle around the picnic table at Shenandoah National Park's Skyland Resort, their breath visible in the crisp autumn air. Sarah spreads the trail map between them, her finger tracing their planned route. Along the Appalachian Trail's most challenging section, 12 miles to Old Rag Summit, then we loop back through the Weekly Hollow Fire Road, she explains, tucking a strand of black hair behind her ear. Should take us about 8 hours total. Marcus adjusts his worn baseball cap and grins. 8 hours of you two complaining about your feet, says the guy who packed 3 energy bars for a 12-mile hike. Jake shoots back, shouldering his overstuffed backpack. At 6'2", he towers over his friends, but his easy smile makes him seem younger than his 22 years. Sarah rolls her eyes. Can we focus? Weather report says possible thunderstorms this afternoon. We need to be off the ridge before 2 o'clock. She's always been the planner of their trio, the pre-med student who color codes her textbooks and sets 3 alarms. Marcus and Jake have learned to trust her obsessive preparation. It's kept them safe through dozens of adventures since they met freshman year at Virginia Tech. They've been inseparable ever since that first awkward dorm meeting, 3 kids from different worlds thrown together by random housing assignments. Sarah, the daughter of immigrants who runs on academic scholarships and determination. Marcus, raised by his grandmother in Richmond after his parents died in a car crash. Jake, the small-town football star whose easy charm masks a sharp intelligence that surprises professors. Trail conditions look good, Sarah continues, studying her phone. No recent reports of rock slides or washouts on the Old Rag circuit. Marcus stands and stretches, joints popping. Then what are we waiting for? Adventure awaits. They sign the trail register at 8:47 a.m. Sarah Chen, Marcus Rivera, Jake Thompson. Expected return 6 p.m. The park ranger on duty, a weathered man named Bill Hawkins, barely glances up from his newspaper. "Y'all be careful out there," he mumbles. "That ridge can turn nasty fast when the weather changes." The trio exchanges knowing looks. They've heard variations of this warning on every hiking trip, delivered by well-meaning adults who underestimate their experience. They've conquered peaks in North Carolina, scrambled through slot canyons in Utah, backpacked sections of the Pacific Crest Trail. Old Rag might be challenging, but it's hardly their first rodeo. The morning unfolds perfectly. Golden sunlight filters through the canopy as they follow the blue blazes deeper into the wilderness. Sarah leads, setting a steady pace that accommodates Jake's longer stride and Marcus's shorter legs. They pause frequently to photograph the changing leaves, brilliant reds and oranges that seem to glow against the granite outcroppings. By noon, they've covered 8 miles and reached the base of Old Rag's notorious rock scramble. The trail disappears into a maze of massive boulders, requiring climbers to squeeze through narrow gaps and pull themselves up near vertical faces using embedded handholds. "This is where it gets fun," Jake announces, chalk dusting his palms. Sarah checks her watch. "We're making good time. 2 hours to reach the summit, another 3 to loop back. We'll beat the weather easy." The rock scramble tests every muscle group as they navigate the granite obstacle course. Sarah moves with calculated precision, testing each handhold before committing her weight. Marcus struggles more with the reach required for some moves, but his compact frame allows him to slip through gaps that challenge his taller friends. Jake powers through with brute strength, occasionally having to back down and find alternate routes when his size works against him. They're laughing and breathless when they emerge onto Old Rag Summit at 1:15 p.m. The 360-degree view stretches for miles in every direction. Rolling mountains painted in autumn colors, the Shenandoah Valley spread below like a patchwork quilt. Worth every bruised knee, Marcus declares, pulling out his camera. But as they pose for summit photos, Sarah notices the weather changing. Dark clouds build along the western horizon, moving faster than the forecast predicted. The wind picks, up carrying the scent of rain. "We need to start down," she says, checking her phone. No signal, typical for the summit. They pack quickly and begin the descent, but the weather deteriorates rapidly. Within 30 minutes, heavy clouds swallow the ridge. Visibility drops to mere yards as fog rolls in thick and disorienting. That's when they make the mistake that changes everything. The fog transforms the familiar trail into an alien landscape. What should be clearly marked blue blazes become ghostly suggestions in the grey void. Sarah stops every few yards to peer through the mist, searching for the painted markers that guide hikers safely down the mountain. "I can't see the next blaze." She calls back to Marcus and Jake, her voice muffled by the thick air. Jake moves up beside her, squinting into the murk. "Maybe we should wait it out. Find some shelter until this clears." On an exposed ridge, Sarah shakes her head. "The storm's coming fast. We need to get below the tree line." Thunder rumbles in the distance, still miles away but approaching. The wind strengthens, whipping the fog into swirling eddies that make navigation even more treacherous. Sarah pulls out her compass, but the needle wavers uncertainly. Too much iron in the surrounding granite. "This way," she decides, pointing toward what she believes is the correct descent route. The trail should curve left around those rocks. They form a human chain, hands on each other's shoulders, moving slowly. Through the grey void, the granite becomes slick with condensation, making every step potentially dangerous. Sarah's confidence wavers as familiar landmarks disappear into the mist. "Are you sure this is right?" Marcus asks, his voice tight with concern. "This doesn't feel like the way we came up." Sarah pauses, studying the barely visible terrain. Nothing looks familiar. The rock formations that served as guideposts during their ascent have vanished into the fog. Her carefully memorized route dissolves into uncertainty. "I think..." She starts, then stops. The truth is, she's not sure of anything anymore. Jake checks his watch. "It's almost 3 o'clock. We've been moving for 45 minutes, and I don't recognize any of this." The first drops of rain spatter against the rocks, heavy and cold. Lightning flickers somewhere in the grey above them, followed by a crack of thunder that seems to shake the mountain itself. "We need shelter now," Sarah decides. "There, I see an overhang." They scramble toward a dark shadow in the mist that resolves into a narrow cave entrance, barely wide enough for Jake's broad shoulders. Inside, the granite walls provide blessed relief from the wind and rain that now lashes the mountainside. Sarah pulls out her headlamp, illuminating their refuge. The cave extends back further than the light can reach, carved by centuries of water erosion. Strange formations of flowstone create curtains along the walls, and somewhere in the darkness, water drips with a steady rhythm. "How long do we wait?" Marcus asks, shivering in his damp jacket. "Until the storm passes," Sarah replies, but her voice lacks conviction. Mountain weather can be unpredictable. They could be trapped for hours. Jake explores deeper into the cave, his footsteps echoing strangely. "Hey, there's a whole network back here, multiple passages." "Don't go far," Sarah warns. "We don't want to get lost underground too." But Jake's voice comes from somewhere deeper in the darkness. "You need to see this. There's gear back here, old camping equipment." Sarah and Marcus exchange glances before following Jake's voice into the cave's depths. Their headlamps reveal a natural chamber where previous visitors have left traces, a torn sleeping bag, rusty camping gear, and scratched into the wall, dozens of names and dates going back decades. "Look at this," Jake says, pointing to a fresh carving. "Someone was here recently." Sarah reads the inscription aloud. "MK plus RS forever, September 2010, just 1 month ago." "Probably some couple looking for a romantic hideaway," Marcus suggests, but something about the carving bothers Sarah. The letters are carved deep, as if the person had plenty of time and was determined to make them permanent. They settle in, to wait out the storm, but as hours pass, their situation becomes increasingly dire. The rain shows no sign of stopping, and their planned return time has long since passed. Sarah's phone remains dead, no signal this deep in the wilderness. Rangers will start looking for us soon, she says, trying to sound more confident than she feels. We signed the trail register. They know our planned route. But privately, she's calculating the problems. They're not on their planned route. The weather will delay any search efforts, and their families won't expect them back until tomorrow. Evening at the earliest, as darkness falls outside their shelter, they hear something that makes them all freeze. Footsteps. Someone or something is moving around outside the cave entrance. "Hello?" Jake calls out. "Is someone there?" The footsteps stop. Then after a long moment a voice calls back, thin, desperate, barely human. "Help us, please. We've been waiting so long." Sarah's blood turns to ice. The voice sounds wrong somehow, stretched thin like it's traveled a great distance. And there's something else, an echo, as if multiple people are speaking the same words simultaneously. Marcus grabs her arm. "That's not possible. Who could be out there in this weather?" Before anyone can answer, they hear the footsteps again. But this time they're inside the cave. Coming from the passages behind them, the footsteps echo from deeper in the cave system, moving with an unnatural rhythm, too slow, too deliberate, as if whoever approaches has forgotten how normal walking should sound. Sarah's headlamp beam trembles as she aims it toward the sound. "Stay together," she whispers, her voice barely audible above the storm raging outside. The footsteps stop. Then from the darkness beyond their light comes that voice again, thin, desperate, multiplied. "We've been waiting so long. The mist never lifts here." Jake steps protectively in front of his friends, his large frame blocking their view of the cave mouth. "Who's there? Come into the light where we can see you." Silence. Then, impossibly, the voice comes from behind them, from the depths they've already explored. "The mist never lifts. Time moves differently. We learned that. Learned. To wait." Sarah's skin crawls. The voice has an echo quality, as if spoken from the bottom of a well, but there's something else, a layering like multiple people speaking in perfect unison. Marcus grabs Sarah's arm. "That's not possible. We came from that direction. There's no one back there." "Unless there's another entrance," Jake suggests, but his voice lacks conviction. The beam of Sarah's headlamp catches something moving in the darkness ahead, a pale shape that seems to flow rather than walk. She blinks hard, wondering if exhaustion and fear are making her see things. "Hello?" she calls out, surprised by how steady her voice sounds. "Do you need help? Are you injured?" "Help," the voice repeats, but it sounds wrong, like someone learning to use the word for the first time. "Yes, help us find the way. We've forgotten the way." A figure steps into the edge of their light, and Sarah's breath catches. It's a young woman, maybe 25, wearing hiking clothes that might have been bright colors once, but now appear faded and gray. Her skin has an odd, translucent quality, and her eyes reflect their headlamp beams like an animal's. "Oh my God," Marcus breathes. "Are you okay? How long have you been out here?" The woman tilts her head at an unnatural angle, studying them with those unsettling eyes. "Time is different here. Minutes, hours, years, all the same when the mist doesn't lift." Jake takes a careful step forward. "What's your name? Are there others with you?" "Others," she agrees, and as if summoned by the word, more figures emerge from the darkness. 2 men, both young, both wearing that same faded hiking gear. All 3 have that strange, translucent quality, as if they're not quite solid. Sarah's mind races. 3 hikers, lost in the mist just like them. But something is fundamentally wrong with this picture. The way they move, the way they speak, the way the light seems to pass through them slightly. When did you get lost? She asks carefully. The woman considers the question with that tilted head. October. The leaves were changing, so beautiful until the mist came. October this year, Marcus presses. October, she repeats, as if the concept of years has no meaning. One of the men steps forward, and Sarah notices his hiking boots don't quite touch the cave floor. The mist came, and we waited, found shelter, like you. But the mist never lifted. It will lift, Jake says with forced confidence. Storms always pass. We just need to wait it out. The three figures exchange glances, and something like pity crosses their translucent faces. We thought that too, the woman says sadly. Waited for the mist to lift, waited for rescue, waited so long we forgot what waiting felt like. Sarah's practical mind struggles to process what she's seeing. Hypothermia can cause hallucinations. Exhaustion can create false memories. But all three of them are seeing the same thing, and the figures are too detailed, too consistent to be. Shared delusions. What are your names? She asks, pulling out her phone to check if she somehow has signal. Still nothing. Names, the woman muses. We had names. Before the mist. Before the waiting. The second man speaks for the first time, his voice carrying that same unnatural echo. Sarah, Marcus, Jake. He looks directly at each of them in turn. We know your names. Ice floods Sarah's veins. They haven't introduced themselves. Their names aren't written anywhere. The figures could have seen them. How do you know? She starts. The mist knows. The woman interrupts. The mist remembers everything, everyone who comes here, everyone who stays. Marcus backs closer to the cave entrance, where rain still lashes the mountainside. We're not staying. As soon as the storm passes, we're leaving. That's what we said, the first man agrees sadly. The storm will pass. The rescue will come. The mist will lift. He shakes his head slowly. But the mist chooses who stays, and it's chosen you. As if responding to his words, the storm outside intensifies. Lightning illuminates the cave entrance in stark white flashes, and the wind howls with renewed fury. But there's something else in that wind now. A sound like voices calling, like people lost and searching. The three figures smile in unison, their translucent faces brightening with an emotion that might be joy or might be hunger. Do you hear them? The woman asks. The others? They're coming to welcome you. Sarah's rational mind rebels against what she's witnessing, but the evidence of her senses can't be denied. The three figures before them aren't entirely human anymore, if they ever were. Their forms flicker slightly in the headlamp beams, like old film projections struggling to maintain focus. You're not real, she says, though her voice wavers with uncertainty. The woman's smile turns sad. Real, not real. The mist makes those distinctions meaningless. We exist, we remember, we wait. Jake moves toward the cave entrance, testing their options. The storm still rages with supernatural intensity, but staying here with these entities feels increasingly dangerous. The weather's letting up, he lies, rainwater streaming down his face as he peers outside. We should make a run for it. No, the first man says, his voice sharp with alarm. The mist is strongest during storms. Step outside now, and you'll never find your way back to anywhere. Despite her fear, Sarah finds herself studying the figures with scientific curiosity. Their clothing shows signs of extended exposure, but it's wrong somehow. Too intact for people who claim to have been lost for an extended period. And their skin has that translucent quality, as if they're slowly becoming transparent. How long have you really been here? She asks. The three figures exchange glances, and for a moment their facades crack. Pain flickers across their faces. Deep, profound suffering that speaks of unendurable loss. Does it matter? The woman whispers. Time isn't linear here. We've seen seasons change through the mist, watched years pass like days, or maybe days pass like years. The mist remembers everything, but we forget. Marcus steps closer to Sarah, his voice barely audible. Their clothes. Look at their clothes, Sarah. Follows his gaze and her blood chills. The faded hiking gear isn't just old, it's from different eras. The woman's jacket has a style that went out of fashion in the 1990s. One man wears boots that look like they're from the 1980s. The other has a backpack design she recognizes from vintage outdoor catalogs. You're from different times, she realizes. Aloud, the figures nod in unison. The mist collects, the woman explains, gathers those who wander too far from the marked paths. We're all here together now, in the between place. Between what? Jake demands. Between lost and found. Between was and is. Between the world you knew and the world that remembers you. The cave system echoes with distant sounds, voices calling, footsteps on stone, the scrape of equipment being dragged. More figures are approaching from the deeper passages, and Sarah realizes they're about to be surrounded by whatever these things are. We need to leave, now. She stands, shouldering her pack. You can't, the second man says, stepping to block their path. Not until you understand. The mist doesn't just trap, it protects. Out there in the storm there are things worse than being lost. What things? Marcus asks, though he's already moving toward the entrance with Jake. The woman's face contorts with remembered terror. The Watchers. They come during the convergences, when the barriers thin. They look for people like you, people who've seen too much, who might remember what shouldn't be remembered. Sarah pauses despite herself. What are you talking about? The trail you followed today. It wasn't the same trail you climbed this morning. The mist moved you, shifted you onto paths that exist elsewhere. You saw the signs but didn't understand them. A chill runs down Sarah's spine as she remembers the strange quality of the light during their descent, the way familiar landmarks seemed to shift in the fog. She'd attributed it to disorientation, but what if it was something more? The carved names in the wall, she says suddenly. MK and RS, who were they? The figures' expressions grow pained. Mel Kingston and Robert Salinas. They came through 6 months ago your time. The Watchers took them before the mist could offer protection. Took them where? Nowhere, everywhere, the spaces between possibilities. They exist now only as warnings, their names carved in stone, their voices calling through the storms. The sounds from deeper in the cave grow louder, more lost souls approaching, drawn by the presence of newcomers. Sarah realizes they're running, out of time to make a choice. Face the supernatural storm outside, or join the collection of displaced souls in the cave. Jake makes the decision for them. I'd rather face whatever's out there than become like you. No offense. He steps into the rain, and immediately the storm seems to intensify around him. The wind howls with voices, and lightning strikes so close that the thunder is instantaneous, deafening. But Jake doesn't disappear. He doesn't fade into the mist. He stands there, solid and real, water streaming down his face. It's just weather, he shouts back to them. Whatever's happening here, it's not real. The three figures recoil as if struck. No, the woman pleads. You don't understand. If you leave the protected space, the Watchers will find you. They'll take you to the places that exist only in nightmares. Then why haven't they taken you? Sarah challenges. The figures fall silent. In that silence, Sarah hears the truth. These entities aren't victims of the mist. They're its servants. The realization hits Sarah like a physical blow. The translucent figures aren't trapped victims. They're predators wearing the faces of the lost, luring new prey into the mist's embrace. Run! She screams to Marcus, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward the cave entrance, where Jake stands in the storm. Behind them, the facade crumbles. The three figures' expressions shift from pained sympathy to predatory hunger. Their forms become more translucent, revealing glimpses of something else underneath, shadows with too many angles, geometries that hurt to perceive directly. "You cannot leave," the woman's voice distorts, multiplying into a chorus of stolen voices. "The mist has claimed you. We are its collectors." Sarah and Marcus burst from the cave into the howling storm. The rain strikes them like ice-cold needles, and the wind threatens to knock them off their feet. But Jake was right. It's just weather, violent and dangerous, but natural. "Which way?" Marcus shouts over the thunder. Sarah pulls out her compass, the needle spinning wildly in the electromagnetic chaos of the storm. Nothing looks familiar in the lightning-strobed darkness. They're surrounded by granite outcroppings and twisted trees, but the landscape seems wrong, too angular, too threatening. "Down!" she decides. "We find the tree line and follow it back to the main trail." They stumble through the darkness, using their headlamps to pick out safe footing on the slick granite. Behind them, sounds emerge from the cave that no human throat could make. A keening wail that harmonizes with the wind, growing stronger as more entities join the pursuit. Jake leads the way, his longer stride allowing him to test the footing for his friends. "There!" He points to a gap between two massive boulders. "That looks like a trail marker." They squeeze through the gap and find themselves on what might be a trail, or might just be an animal path. In the lightning flashes, Sarah catches glimpses of torn fabric on the thorns, old and weathered. Others have passed this way before, but whether they found safety or something else remains unclear. The entities behind them move through the storm without difficulty, their forms barely affected by the wind and rain. Their voices carry impossible distances, calling out in languages that predate human speech. "We have to keep moving," Sarah gasps, her lungs burning from the cold air and exertion. "They're herding us." "Herding us where?" Marcus pants. "Before anyone can answer, the trail ahead divides into 3 paths. In the lightning, Sarah sees that each path leads into a different kind of darkness, one toward what looks like normal forest, another toward granite cliffs that shouldn't exist in this location, and a third that seems to bend back on itself in ways that make her eyes water. "The middle path," Jake says. "It looks the most natural." "No," Sarah stops him. "Look at the trees, the angle of the rocks. None of this is where it should be." She's right. The landscape around them defies the topography they memorized from their morning ascent. Mountains have shifted, valleys have appeared where none existed, and the very air carries scents from seasons that aren't October. "We're not on the mountain anymore," Marcus realizes. "We're somewhere else entirely." The entities burst from the storm behind them, no longer maintaining human appearances. They flow like liquid shadow, taking shapes that exist in too many dimensions for normal perception. Their voices merge into a sound like reality tearing. "Choose," one of them commands, its form shifting between the 3 hikers they'd impersonated. "The paths are gifts. Each leads to a different kind of forever." "We choose none of them," Sarah declares, pulling out her phone. Still no signal, but the GPS shows something impossible. Their location registers as coordinates that don't exist on any map. The entities laugh, the sound like glass breaking in reverse. "There is no 4th option. The mist has moved you beyond the spaces where choices matter. You must go forward. You cannot go back." To prove their point, the path behind them dissolves into grey void. The cave entrance vanishes, leaving only the 3 branching trails ahead. Jake examines each path more carefully. The left one has blazes, old ones, but they're there. Sarah sees them too, faded blue paint on trees that look almost normal, but something about the markings bothers her. They're too regular, too perfectly spaced, as if someone created a trail specifically to look safe. "It's another trap," she says. "Like the figures in the cave. They're showing us what we want to see." "Then what do we do?" Marcus asks, his voice cracking with exhaustion and fear. Sarah studies the impossible landscape around them, her scientific mind searching for patterns, for rules that might govern this place. The entities wait with predatory patience, confident that their prey has no choice but to walk into whatever snare they've prepared. But as she watches the lightning illuminate the twisted terrain, Sarah notices something the entities might not expect her to see. The storm isn't random, it's following patterns, creating brief moments when the mist thins and reality bleeds through. During those moments, she glimpses something that makes her heart race with desperate hope. In the lightning's brief illumination, Sarah sees it, a fourth path, visible only when the electrical discharge cuts through the mist like a blade. It appears for seconds at a time, a narrow track that seems to exist in the spaces between the other three options. "There," she whispers, pointing as another lightning bolt reveals the hidden trail. When the next flash comes, we run for it. The entities sense her discovery, their forms becoming more agitated. "You see illusions," they hiss in unison, "shadows cast by desperate hope. There are only three paths, and all lead to us." But Jake has seen it too. "I count 4 paths," he says loudly, stepping toward the space where the hidden trail appears. "Math was never my strongest subject, but I can count to 4. Thunder rolls across the impossible landscape, and in the next lightning flash, all 3 friends bolt toward the 4th path. The entities shriek in fury, their forms stretching and distorting as they give chase. The hidden trail feels different under their feet, more solid, more real than the twisted landscape around them. Their footsteps echo with the sound of actual stone and earth, not the hollow resonance of the other paths. "It's working," Marcus gasps as they climb through terrain that finally matches their memory of the mountain's topology. "We're getting back to the real trail." Behind them, the entity's pursuit grows more desperate. Their voices fracture into constituent parts. Sarah realizes she can hear the individual voices of their victims, dozens of people calling out in languages spanning decades. "Help us," comes a voice from the 1970s, barely audible above the storm. "Don't let them add us to their collection." "The pattern," another voice calls, this one more recent. "Break the pattern and they lose their hold." Sarah understands. The entities need their victims to choose one of the 3 paths, to accept the false reality they've constructed. By finding the 4th option, the path that exists only in the spaces between their illusions, they're breaking the rules that give the entities power. The trail leads them through a landscape that shifts between dimensions with each lightning flash. In one flash, they're running through normal Virginia forest. In another, they're crossing alien terrain under a sky with too many moons. But each flash that shows the normal world lasts a little longer, while the alien landscapes fade. "We're pulling ourselves back," Sarah realizes, her scientific mind finally grasping the mechanics of their situation. "The path exists because we believe it exists. We're choosing reality over illusion." "Then keep believing," Jake shouts, his voice carrying newfound determination. "I believe in granite and oak trees and weather that follows physics." The entities make one final attempt to reclaim their prey. The storm around them intensifies beyond anything nature could produce, and the mist thickens until they can barely see their own hands. Voices whisper from every direction, offering safety, promising rescue, begging them to stop running towards certain death. But Sarah has found her anchor, the scientific method, the discipline of observation and hypothesis. She counts her steps, measures the angle of descent, calculates their approximate position based on the time they've been moving. 200 yards, she calls to her friends. "If we're where I think we are, the main trail should be 200 yards ahead." "What if you're wrong?" Marcus asks, his faith wavering. "Then we keep running until we find something real," Jake answers for her. "I'd rather die trying to get home than live forever as part of their collection." The entity's pursuit stops abruptly. Their voices fade to whispers, then to nothing. The unnatural storm begins to dissipate, replaced by ordinary rain that feels like a blessing on their exhausted bodies. They can't follow us, Sarah realizes. They're bound to the space between spaces. Once we're fully back in our reality, they have no power. The trail ahead shows a blue blaze, fresh paint, properly maintained, pointing toward the legitimate Appalachian Trail. Sarah has never been so happy to see a simple painted mark in her life. They emerge onto the main trail just as dawn breaks over the mountains. The storm clouds disperse rapidly, revealing a perfectly normal October morning. Birds sing in the trees, and the air carries the scent of wet leaves and rich earth. "Look," Marcus points back toward the ridge where they spent the night. It's just a normal mountain. The granite cliffs and impossible angles are gone, replaced by the familiar landscape they'd climbed the day before. No sign of the cave system, no trace of the entities that had pursued them through the night. Jake checks his watch. 6:30 a.m. We've been missing for 10 hours. "The Rangers will be looking for us," Sarah says, but her voice carries uncertainty. "Won't they?" As if summoned by her words, they hear voices calling their names from down the trail. Human voices, speaking with Virginia accents and the professional cadence of search and rescue teams. But after their experience with the entities, Sarah finds herself wondering, how can they be sure these new voices are real? The voices calling their names grow closer, accompanied by the sound of boots on wet trail and radio chatter. Sarah feels a surge of relief, but caution tempers her joy. After their encounter with the entities, she's learned to question everything. Sarah, Marcus, Jake. The voice belongs to Ranger Bill Hawkins, the same man who'd barely looked up from his newspaper when they signed the trail register yesterday morning. "Sound off if you can hear me!" Jake cups his hands around his mouth. "Here! We're here! On the main trail, about 2 miles below Old Rag Summit." The radio chatter intensifies, and within minutes they see headlamps bobbing through the trees. The search team consists of 4 rangers and 2 volunteers, all wearing the familiar green uniforms of Shenandoah National Park staff. "Thank God," Ranger Hawkins says as he reaches them, his weathered face showing genuine relief. "When you didn't return last night, we started a search at first light. Your families have been worried sick." Sarah studies his face carefully, looking for the telltale signs that had marked the cave entities, the 2 perfect features, the translucent quality, the unsettling eyes. But Hawkins looks completely normal, tired, concerned, and slightly irritated by having to conduct a rescue operation. "What happened to you 3? Asks Ranger Martinez, the team's medic, as she checks them for injuries. "You were supposed to return by 6 p.m. yesterday. We got caught in the storm," Marcus explains, sticking to the simplest version of events. "Found shelter in a cave system and waited it out." "Cave system?" Hawkins frowns. "There's no significant cave network along the Old Rag Circuit. A few overhangs, but nothing you could take shelter in." The 3 friends exchange glances. How do they explain spending the night in a cave that apparently doesn't exist, being pursued by entities that collect lost souls? "Maybe we were more disoriented than we thought," Sarah says diplomatically. "It was hard to see anything in that fog." "Fog?" Martinez looks puzzled. "The weather service shows clear skies from 4 p.m. yesterday through this morning. No fog reported anywhere in the region." Jake's jaw tightens. "Are you saying we imagined the storm? Because I can guarantee you it was real." "I'm not saying you imagined anything," Martinez replies carefully, "but the weather data shows no precipitation, no electrical activity, no atmospheric conditions that would create fog. Perfect hiking weather all evening." Hawkins pulls out a detailed topographic map. "Show me where you took shelter." Sarah points to the approximate location where they'd found the cave. "Somewhere around here, maybe a 1/4 mile off the main trail." "That's solid granite," Hawkins says, studying the map. "No caves, no fissures deep enough for shelter." Are you sure you weren't closer to Weekly Hollow? There are some rock formations there that might provide limited protection. We know where we were, Jake insists, his voice rising with frustration. Easy, Martinez says, her medic training recognizing the signs of stress and exhaustion. Hypothermia can cause disorientation. False memories, you've been through a traumatic experience. But Sarah's scientific mind rebels against the suggestion that they collectively hallucinated the entire night. The memories are too detailed, too consistent, too terrifyingly real. She remembers the exact words the entities spoke, the precise way the cave walls felt under her hands, the specific pattern of the storm's lightning. We need to get you back to the ranger station, Hawkins decides. Get you warm, fed, and checked out properly. Your families are waiting. As they walk back toward the trailhead, Sarah notices something that makes her stop abruptly. My pack, she says, checking the external pockets. I had energy bars in here, extra batteries. They're gone. Marcus checks his pack too. My water. Bottle's empty. It was full when we took shelter. We ate the energy bars, Jake points out. Drank the water. We were in that cave for hours. But if there was no storm, Sarah says slowly, if there's no cave where we remember it being, then where did we spend the night? And what did we eat and drink? The search team exchanges uncomfortable glances. Hawkins clears his throat. People get disoriented in the wilderness. Memory plays tricks. The important thing is you're safe now. But as they continue down the trail, Sarah notices other discrepancies. Her hiking boots show wear patterns consistent with walking on rough granite. For hours, Marcus has scratches on his hands from squeezing through narrow passages. Jake's jacket is torn in the exact spot where he'd caught it on the cave entrance. Physical evidence of experiences that supposedly never happened. At the trailhead, their families wait with expressions of relief and barely controlled panic. Sarah's parents embrace her with desperate intensity, her mother crying openly. We were so scared, her father says, when you didn't come back, when the rangers said there was no record of bad weather. No record, Sarah pulls back. Dad, we were caught in a massive thunderstorm. Lightning, heavy rain, dangerous winds. Her father and Ranger Hawkins exchange a look that speaks volumes. 6 years later, drone pilot Rebecca Chen. No relation to. Sarah adjusts the controls as her quadcopter hovers above the old Rag Ridge. She's part of a documentary crew revisiting the case that has puzzled investigators and paranormal enthusiasts for over half a decade. Drone 2 is at 300 feet, she reports into her headset. Clear visibility, no weather issues. The mountain below looks peaceful in the afternoon sunlight. October leaves paint the landscape in brilliant oranges and reds, exactly as they had on the day 3 college students vanished without explanation. Copy, Drone 2, comes the voice of documentary producer Mike Castellanos. We're looking for any cave systems, overhangs, or geological features that might explain where they took shelter that night. Rebecca has read the case files until she could recite them from memory. 3 experienced hikers signed in at the trail register, expected return 6 p.m. Search teams found them on the main trail the next morning, unharmed, but claiming to have spent the night in a cave system that doesn't exist, sheltering from a storm that never happened. The psychological evaluations found no signs of shared psychosis. The medical exams revealed genuine physical wear consistent with their story. Scratches, bruises, depleted supplies. But every attempt to locate the cave they described has failed. Thermal imaging shows normal rock temperatures, Rebecca reports. Scanning the granite face where the students claim to have found shelter. No subsurface voids, no air circulation patterns that would indicate caves. Keep looking. Mike's voice crackles through static. Those kids didn't spend 8 hours sitting on open granite in what they believed was a thunderstorm. Rebecca pilots the drone along the ridge, following the exact route Sarah, Marcus, and Jake had described in their interviews. The footage shows nothing unusual. Typical Appalachian terrain, well-maintained trails, normal vegetation patterns. Then the drone's camera catches something that makes Rebecca freeze. "Mike, you need to see this," she says, her voice tight with excitement. "Grid reference 7G, about 50 feet below the main ridgeline." On her monitor, the drone's camera reveals three figures moving along a narrow ledge that shouldn't be accessible without technical climbing equipment. They appear to be wearing hiking gear, moving with the careful precision of people navigating dangerous terrain. "How the hell did hikers get down there?" Mike's voice carries through the headset. "That ledge is completely isolated. No access, from above or below." Rebecca zooms in, adjusting the camera's focus. The figures are too far away to make out facial features, but their body language suggests exhaustion, desperation. One appears to be injured, supported by the other two. "They're trapped," she realizes. "We need to call search and rescue immediately." But as she reaches for her radio, something strange happens to the drone's video feed. The image flickers, digital artifacts corrupting the signal. When the picture stabilizes, the ledge is empty. "Did you get that?" Rebecca asks, her hands trembling slightly as she reviews the recorded footage. "Get what?" The feed cut out for about 10 seconds, just static. Rebecca checks the drone's memory storage. The footage shows her piloting over empty terrain, no figures on any ledge. But she knows what she saw. Three people, real as the mountain beneath them, moving along an impossible route. "I'm bringing the drone in," she decides. "Something's interfering with the electronics up here." As the quadcopter descends, Rebecca catches a glimpse of movement in her peripheral vision. A figure standing on the ridge, watching the drones approach. When she turns the camera toward the sighting, nothing is there. Back at base camp, the documentary crew reviews all the footage from the day's shoot. Hours of video showing normal mountain terrain, typical wildlife, standard geological formations. No trace of the figures Rebecca insists she saw. "Equipment malfunction," suggests sound engineer David Park. "High altitude can mess with electronics. Maybe you saw a reflection or digital artifacts that looked like people." But Rebecca has been piloting drones for 5 years. She knows the difference between equipment failure and reality. Those were real people on that ledge, trapped in a location that should be inaccessible. "Run it again," she insists. "Frame by frame, there has to be something." They analyze every second of footage, but the mountain reveals none of its secrets. The case remains as mysterious as ever. 3 students who survived an impossible night, claiming experiences that left physical evidence but can't be verified. Mike. Castellanos shuts down the equipment with visible frustration. 6 years, dozens of investigations, and we're no closer to understanding what happened to those kids. "Maybe that's the point," Rebecca says quietly. "Maybe some mysteries aren't meant to be solved." As the documentary crew packs their gear, none of them notice the figure watching from the tree line. Sarah Chen, now 28 and working as a research scientist, has returned to the mountain that changed her life. She's not alone. Marcus and Jake stand beside her, all 3 transformed by their experience in ways the world can't understand. They've come back because the mountain is calling again, reaching across dimensions to claim new victims. And this time, they're here to stop it. Sarah's enhanced perception cuts through the documentary crew's ordinary awareness like a blade through silk. She can see the dimensional weak points scattered across the ridge, places where reality grows thin and the entities wait for new prey. The mountain hasn't been dormant, it's been feeding. "They're already marked," Marcus says, his voice carrying harmonics that exist in frequencies beyond normal human hearing. The drone pilot saw through the barriers. "She's vulnerable now." Jake nods, his transformed senses tracking the crew's movements as they pack their equipment. The same pattern as before. Technology malfunctions, glimpses of impossible things, the slow erosion of certainty about what's real. Sarah focuses on Rebecca Chen, studying the young woman's aura through eyes that perceive beyond the visible spectrum. The dimensional exposure has left traces, microscopic fractures in her personal reality that the entities can exploit. She saw them, Sarah confirms, the previous victims still trapped on the ledge between dimensions. The mountain is using them as bait. 6 years have changed the three friends in ways their families and former classmates can't comprehend. The night in the cave didn't just traumatize them, it awakened them. They've spent years learning to navigate the spaces between realities, developing abilities that let them protect others from the fate they narrowly escaped. The convergence points are multiplying, Marcus observes, his enhanced awareness mapping the dimensional instabilities across the mountainside. Whatever's causing this, it's accelerating. They move through the forest with inhuman grace, their transformed bodies requiring no conscious effort to navigate the treacherous terrain. To normalize, they might appear as shadows, tricks of light, or brief glimpses of movement in peripheral vision. The documentary crew loads their van, unaware they're being observed by 3 people who officially don't exist, at least not in any form that baseline reality can acknowledge. We should warn them, Jake suggests, but Sarah shakes her head. They wouldn't believe us. And direct contact might accelerate their exposure to the dimensional fractures. Instead, they follow at a distance as the crew drives down the mountain road. Sarah's enhanced senses detect the subtle wrongness that clings to their vehicle. Reality. Distortions that will grow stronger with each passing hour. They'll start having dreams tonight, she predicts. Shared dreams about the mountain, about caves that don't exist. By tomorrow, they'll be compelled to return. The pattern is always the same. The mountain selects its victims through exposure to dimensional anomalies, then draws them back through increasingly vivid experiences that blur the line between nightmare and memory. Most people resist the pull, attributing their strange dreams to stress or imagination. But some, like Rebecca, have minds capable of perceiving beyond normal parameters. Those are the ones the mountain claims. We need to intervene before they reach the threshold, Marcus says. Once they cross over voluntarily, we can't pull them back. Sarah's phone buzzes with an encrypted message from Dr. Elena Vasquez, their handler in the government program that doesn't officially exist. The text appears normal to any intercepting surveillance, but Sarah's enhanced perception reads the hidden meanings layered beneath the surface words. New incidents reported in West Virginia and Tennessee, she translates. The dimensional instabilities are spreading along the entire Appalachian range. It's not just this mountain, Jake realizes. The whole ecosystem is shifting. Something big is coming. They return to their safe house, a modest cabin that exists in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Its interior spaces folded through geometries that normal physics can't describe. The walls are lined with crystalline formations that pulse with soft, phosphorescent light, technology that bridges the gap between science and something far older. Sarah activates the communication array, sending quantum-encrypted signals to other Guardian teams scattered across the continent. The responses paint a disturbing picture. Dimensional barriers failing at an accelerating rate, ancient entities becoming more active, reality itself beginning to fray at the edges. The convergence Dr. Vasquez predicted, Marcus says, studying, the data streams that flow through their enhanced consciousness. It's not years away anymore, maybe months or weeks, Jake adds grimly. The patterns are exponential now. Sarah makes a decision that will change everything. We reveal ourselves to the documentary crew, to the other investigators, to anyone who's been touched by the dimensional anomalies. It's time to stop working in shadows. The risk, Marcus begins, the risk of exposure is smaller than the risk of failing to stop what's coming. Sarah interrupts. We need allies, people who've already seen enough to believe, who can help us identify and protect the vulnerable. She begins composing messages that will be sent through channels both mundane and supernatural. Emails that will reach documentary producers, forum posts that will find paranormal investigators, dreams that will touch the minds of those already marked by dimensional exposure. The age of secrecy is ending. The war for reality itself is about to begin. Rebecca Chen first, Sarah decides. She's the most immediately vulnerable, and her technical skills could be invaluable. As night falls over the Virginia mountains, three figures who exist between dimensions prepare to step fully into the light. Their personal story of survival is about to become humanity's last hope. Rebecca Chen jolts awake at 3:33 a.m., her hotel room filled with the phantom sound of voices calling her name. The dream felt impossibly real. Standing on that impossible ledge, watching three figures approach through mist that tasted of copper and ozone. Her laptop chimes with a new email. The sender's address is a string of numbers that shouldn't form. A valid domain. But somehow the message arrived in her inbox anyway. Rebecca, you saw us on the mountain. We need to talk. Meet us at Skyland Resort, dawn. Come alone and bring your drone footage. All of it, including the files you think were corrupted. You're in danger, but we can help. Sarah, Marcus, Jake. She stares at the screen, her rational mind rejecting the impossible. The three names belong to people who disappeared 6 years ago, were found the next day, and then vanished again from all public records within months of their rescue. But her enhanced memory, sharpened by exposure to dimensional anomalies she doesn't yet understand, recalls every detail of what her drone captured. Three figures on an impossible ledge, moving with purpose that spoke of desperate intelligence. Against every instinct for self-preservation, she drives to Skyland Resort as the sun rises over the mountains. The parking lot is empty except for a single vehicle, a nondescript sedan that seems to bend light around its edges in ways that make her eyes water. Three people wait for her at the same picnic table where the original trio had planned their fateful hike. They looked like the missing students, but changed. Their features sharper, their movements carrying an inhuman grace, their eyes reflecting light like polished mirrors. You came, Sarah says, her voice carrying harmonics that resonate in Rebecca's bones. That's good. It means you're strong enough to handle the truth. Who are you? Rebecca demands, though part of her already knows. We're what happens when ordinary people survive contact with forces that exist outside normal reality. Marcus explains. 6 years ago, we stumbled into something that changed us. Now we're trying to prevent others from experiencing the same transformation, or worse fates. Jake gestures toward the ridge where Rebecca's drone spotted the impossible figures. That mountain is a nexus point, a place where the barriers between dimensions grow thin. Entities from other realities use it to hunt for prey in our world. The figures on the ledge, Rebecca says, understanding beginning to dawn. They were real, but not from our dimension, Sarah confirms. They're bait. The entities use them to lure people like you, individuals with enhanced perception who can see beyond normal parameters. Rebecca's scientific training wars with the evidence of her senses. This is impossible. Parallel dimensions, interdimensional. Entities, it's science fiction. So was quantum mechanics, until it wasn't, Marcus points out. So was DNA, general relativity, and every other truth that expanded human understanding beyond its previous limits. Sarah activates a device that looks like a crystalline smartphone. The air around them shimmers, and suddenly Rebecca can see what her enhanced perception has been trying to show her. The mountain exists in multiple realities simultaneously, its slopes crawling with entities that feed on dimensional displacement. The convergence is accelerating, Sarah explains. Barriers that have kept the realities separate for millennia are failing. Without intervention, our dimension will be overrun within months. What do you want from me? Rebecca asks, though she's already guessing the answer. Help us find the others, Jake says. Your documentary isn't the first investigation. Dozens of people have been marked by exposure to dimensional anomalies. Some have developed abilities like ours. Others are still vulnerable to entity predation. Sarah hands Rebecca a list of names. Investigators, hikers, local residents who've reported unexplained experiences. We need to warn them, protect them, recruit those who can be trained to fight back. And if I refuse, then you'll be hunted, Marcus says bluntly. The entities know you've seen through the barriers. They'll come for you in dreams first, then through dimensional incursions into your everyday reality. Eventually, you'll either join us voluntarily or become food for things that exist in the spaces between worlds. Rebecca stares at the list, recognizing several names from her research. People who'd reported strange experiences, who'd been dismissed as attention seekers or mentally unstable. My footage from yesterday, she says slowly. It really showed them, didn't it? The trapped figures. A glimpse across dimensional boundaries, Sarah confirms. Your equipment briefly synchronized with frequencies beyond normal perception. The entities noticed. As if summoned by their words, the air around the picnic table grows cold. Shadows move wrong, stretching toward them with predatory intent. But the three transformed humans simply stand, their bodies beginning to emit that same phosphorescent glow Rebecca had seen in the crystalline formations. The shadows recoil, unable to maintain coherence in the presence of beings who exist between realities. Choose quickly, Sarah urges. Join us and learn to fight back, or face them alone. Rebecca looks at the impossible evidence surrounding her, then at the list of names in her hands. Scientists, investigators, ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances. What do I need to do? Sarah smiles, the first entirely human expression Rebecca has seen from any of them. Help us save the world.